This dark purple iris is much bigger than the irises I remember last year. I could be mistaken about that, but this does look a lot bigger than the ones that bloomed last year. Very nice. And I got a handful of the light purple irises blooming over there. And Fifi following me around. Hi, Fifi. Meow. Good morning from Bobblehead Homestead. I am Jeff. Today is Tuesday. It is bright and sunny and 80 degrees. Yep, summer is here already. A couple quick notes. Follow up to yesterday's video on the layout of the cabin. Some really good questions and suggestions and ideas, and keep them pouring in. I thought I'd talk about a few of the things. Let's see, heating and cooling. I've already got electric heaters and air conditioners, so I'm all good there with the heating and cooling. I want to stay away from propane because of the moisture. Wood stoves are also a common suggestion, and I just do not see myself chopping wood in the future long term. So I'll just be sticking with what I got, and hey, I've got until November to figure out something else, but I think it is going to be just fine with using what I already have. What else? Water heater. My first thought was to build a new well house and put the water heater in there. That well house the roof is too heavy for me to get off, and there's no access door, so you have to crawl over it and get in there, and it's just not a very well thought out well house. So that's it. You know, my future goals way in the future. My first idea was to put the water heater in there and yank the one out of the mobile home. To do that, again, use what I got because that's all I got. However, after looking at Lowe's, they have some like apartment size, well, they have 20 gallon or 30 gallon. The 20 gallon would probably be good for me. A brand new one's, it'll be over $300 when you figure in the accessory stuff that you need. But that would fit in the corner of my kitchen. Right on the water wall, right by the kitchen sink and the shower, and so that might be what we end up doing if we do have a water heater to put in there. Just one of those small, low profile, you know, like 30 inches tall, one like that. That might be the way we go. I still want a new water well house. Because I'm going to want a water filter someday, and that would be good to put in there. And I also want to do, well, outdoor spigots. I wouldn't mind 2 of them, or 3 of them, or 12 of them. But an outdoor spigot on the well house and also one on the cabin would be very nice. And in fact, an outdoor utility sink, garden sink. That probably would come in very handy also, along with a little, you know, stainless steel table next to it for cleaning fish and other stuff. So yeah, and I've got a utility shed. I do have a utility shed I haven't set up yet, but utility sink. You know, one of those plastic ones that are really deep, and so I've got one of those. One of those outdoors I think would be pretty cool. I also wouldn't mind an outdoor shower, you know, someday. Talk about you know, as long as like a day like this is perfect weather for taking an outdoor shower, that you're not adding the humidity into the tiny cabin, and you have to clean it less frequently. So an outdoor shower is probably something, and those are just, you know, been using a garden hose for a year and a half, so it can be done. Something else I want to mention is I'm thinking about the wheelchair access in the future, not today. So me lowering cabinets and lowering sinks and building all that right now is not going to be helpful to me because I'm 6 foot tall, and lowering stuff will just be harder on my back. So I'm thinking about this in the future. Same with that wheelchair ramp that I mentioned. That's not something that can be years down the road, but I'm just thinking ahead of time on, you know, leaving space on the side of the cabin and where the cabin placement, I took that into consideration, is where would a wheelchair ramp go. So I am, and then there's always, I might not live in that cabin forever. I might build another cabin and live in that other cabin and rent this one out, and then this one would be wheelchair accessible so that I could give vacation opportunities to people with disabilities. One thing I was just reading about is it's called an auditory vacation for blind kids and teenagers and anybody who's blind. If they're in a city, you know, all they hear are the city noise. And so they look for spots out in the country away from that type of noise pollution where they can, their auditory senses can, you know, they can pick up the wind and the birds and, you know, whatever. So, you know, that's, I just thought that. So, you know, who knows? I've got big dreams here. I might not end up living in that cabin. I might end up renting that one out and building another one for myself. You just never know. On that front, the wood stove, what happens if my electricity goes out and I've got all electric heat? Yeah, that's a problem. So, you know, like a backup propane, they've got those little ones. It does not get really cold here. About 2 weeks of the year, it'll get below freezing at night. Rarely does it get below like the mid-20s, and I don't think it's even been below 20 degrees since I've been here. So it's not like if the heat did go out in the middle of the night, it's not like I'm going to be frozen to death before the morning. It's just not that cold down here. But one thing I was thinking, you know, if I do like build a yurt or another vacation cabin, I'll put a wood stove in there. And so that way, you know, if the heat goes out or the electricity goes out for a while, I got a wood stove. I'll just go sleep in my own vacation yurt or vacation cabin. So yeah, I give all this stuff too much thought, and then you get me talking about it and it turns into an hour and a half long video. So yeah, let me show you. Okay, I've got 3 or 4 people have contacted me about coming on May 11th. So cool, and very much thank you. If you do plan on coming, please shoot me an email. I'll put my email address down below. I'd like to have an idea of how many people might be showing up. That will help me plan. If there's just 5 or 6 people, then that's one thing. If more than 5 or 6 people show up, well, let me show you some ideas on what we can do, weather permitting. If we have more than a handful of people, or if we run out of supplies on the cabin really quick, this is one of the first projects that I had in mind. This is the area. There was a shed here that was full of junk and trash, and out in the country when they came down, they took the shed down, and that's a lot of that's the aluminum remnants of it there, that pile of aluminum, which will be picked up this week. But getting the rest of this cleared out, that would be wonderful. And then there's an area in there, getting the brush cleared there. I've got metal fencing, and I wouldn't mind it running it from that tree to that big tree in the middle, and then over to this tree. So I've got a trellis all the way along that front side, and let's go over there and look. Okay, you can see there's a row of daylilies here. And I've got wood chips just a little bit in front of them, but in back of them, I've already got the wood chips. So I'd like to extend the wood chips underneath of the metal fencing, extend the metal fencing behind this little evergreen tree, and then also extend the wood chips in front of the fencing over there. I've got a bunch more daylilies in the front yard, and I wouldn't mind just extending that row of daylilies out here. So that's what I'm thinking for one project would be, you know, tackling this little front corner of my property and getting it into use. Let's swing back around. This is where I'm thinking about dumping some gravel and putting a parking spot for boondockers or campers or wherever. There's just so much broken glass and broken Christmas ornaments and small little plastic beads, and I'll just never get that out of there. So what I'm thinking is taking down this little tree there. That's where the fence is tied to right now, and then taking down that little tree right there. Taking that tree out, and then that would open up this whole space for parking a camper or something like that. And then I would just cover that spot where all that trash was with gravel, and that can be the parking pad, and it would hopefully cover up any more, you know, broken glass and stuff like that. So that's that would be my dream for this little area. Of course, I'd move the burn barrel and the little animal cage and stuff like that. But that would be my dream of this area. Getting it cleaned up, getting more wood chips put down, maybe moving some of those daylilies over there to extend the row. And then in the future, laying down some gravel. And this could be a nice little camping spot right here at the end of my driveway, where they would have a view of Mount Magazine. Can you see it back there? It's hard to... There you go. Yep. So if a handful of people show up and we run out of materials to work on the cabin, that would be one of the first areas that I would ask for some help in, and getting that getting the brush cleared and the trash up, and getting it ready to be a camping spot for, you know, hey, I can run an extension cord out there, a garden hose, my Wi-Fi probably goes out there, and, you know, sooner rather than later I could be offering vacation spots. And so that would be my first idea on what to do. What if we get more than like 5 or 6 people, or they work a lot faster and harder than I can imagine? Well, let me share my next dream with you. I think you're gonna like this dream. I'm standing in the bed of my truck for this one. That plastic that's sticking out there, about where the plastic start and the rocks end, that'll be where the front of my cabin ends. There'll be a 4-foot front porch, and so yeah, the stairs will be coming down there. But you can see I've got a front yard here. So my dream for this front yard, last year I had thousands of flowers that I started from seeds and then transplanted out here. I haven't done any of that this year, and there's a good reason for that. I would like to do 3-foot raised beds in the front yard, and just as many raised beds as I can. But before the raised beds go in, these gladiolas and the daffodils, probably that rose bush, the irises, more irises, daylilies down there, more irises, so that would be the next dream. If we've got more than a handful of people here and they wanted to start digging up irises, that would be wonderful, because I would like to have those out of the way for some 3-foot raised beds. And I'm thinking, you know, some inspiration I've had off-grid with Doug and Stacy, their garden area. They've got several raised beds, and I think that's just a wonderful idea for me. I know I kind of poo-pooed that idea, you know, like a year ago, but I'll talk about that here in a second. So yeah, I can just see raised beds filling up this entire front yard, and that would be wonderful. You can see those are all sunflowers popping up. Well, right down in between, it goes in between those 2 trees down there, these 2 trees. That's where my fiber optic internet goes, in between those 2 trees, and then comes up in here. So raised beds would also be, you know, beneficial for that, because I'm not going to be, it's buried 2 feet deep, so probably not going to be a problem. But, you know, just put raised beds on top of it, and then you know it's not going to be a problem. So that's why I haven't been doing any gardening this year, is that, man, it's only me and I can only do so much. And my big dream are the raised beds. Now, here's why I haven't really been talking much about raised beds until now. One of the obstacles in my way of thinking about raised beds earlier was, man, you got to fill them. And, you know, 3 feet raised beds, a whole bunch of them, if you're buying that compost and soil, that is not going to be a cheap endeavor. So that's, you know, that was one of the things that was that's an obstacle to doing the raised beds, is being able to fill them. Now I've got a pretty good way to get them most of the way full. And this is something several channels have done. Roots and Refuge Farm, when I was talking to them when I was at their farm, they started off, you know, that bottom layer, they just put wood, you know, down limbs and stuff like that. Justin Rhodes just built his raised beds, and he also filled them up about a third of the way, I think, with wood. So it's like a hugelkultur bed. I've got plenty of material to get that first layer into the raised beds to get me going. And let's take a look at something else. If you can't afford to fill your raised beds with soil, well, the next best thing would be filling it with future soil. I've got wood chips. I've got literal tons and tons of wood chips. So yeah, I could completely do the hugelkultur style raised beds to get myself started, fill it up the rest of the way with these wood chips, and then only the very top layer would need to be soil for me to be able to start planting into it right away. It might not be the best raised beds for a couple years until this stuff really starts breaking down, but then I don't, after that, there shouldn't be any problems with it. So, but not only is this, I think there were 10 or 12 truckloads of wood chips. There's some more brush down there that could be used. And then, yeah, there are more wood chips over there. That's on my neighbor's property, but he got those wood chips for me. So, yeah, I got plenty of free material already on hand to fill all but the top layer of those raised beds. So that would be my next dream. Okay, there's a couple of my dreams that I think if we've got more than a handful of people here, we can at least start on 2 of those. And you know, just getting all those bulbs and rhizomes and stuff out of there, that would be a huge start for me towards the raised beds. And I like the taller ones, and leave enough space in between them for a wheelchair. And they're just a lot of advantages. And then being able to control the soil. A lot of the food that I eat, just really, my ground is not compatible for growing, you know, lettuces and broccoli and carrots and, you know, stuff like that. It's too rocky for, well, especially like carrots, but things that have fine root systems, and they're not going to do as well when you've got you know, huge rocks that their roots have to go around. Because anyway, I don't need to explain all that stuff to gardeners. It'd be a lot easier for me to grow my food if I've got raised beds. So my long-term plan is to turn that entire front yard into raised beds. And another thing, Roots and Refuge, they use the cattle panels to make the trellis arches to grow, you know, all kind, you know, beans, peas, any type of vining type plant, and so you can do those from one raised bed to the other and have an arch, and then in the middle of the summer it's all green and really cool looking. And so yeah, big dreams would be a front yard full of tall raised beds. Grumpy just pigged out. Now he's napping in the shade right next to the front door on a storage tote. You asleep, Grumpy? You asleep? It's like, don't bug me, dude. That may have been the worst sales job ever on trying to convince people to come down here and volunteer. I don't know, picking up trash and digging up flowers. Oh, it is what it is. All right, so what happens if more than like a dozen people show up and I've got somehow have the funding for the entire cabin and extra? You're gonna have to watch my future videos for that. So on that front, if you want to help me out, Lowe's gift cards, that's where we'll probably be doing the bulk of our material shopping, there's one an hour away in Russellville, and that's really the only game in town that would be one-stop shopping for all of that stuff. So a Lowe's gift card, those would be helpful. My P.O. box is down below, so that would be one way. Another way you could help, and I hate doing this, but my PayPal link, I'll put my PayPal link below also. And that's, yeah, that would be another way. If you can't, I'd much rather you come and help me dig out irises, but I will put my PayPal link below. Somebody suggested that Lowe's might have like a gift registry type deal, so I'll have to look into that. I don't know anything about that. That might be another way, since that's where we'll be doing our shopping, and that way we can keep track of what supplies are, you know, are available. With the Amazon wish list, that might not work so great for us, because, you know, some stuff you just can't do without. So we could not be sitting around here wondering whether or not something on the Amazon wish list would come out. So I'll get with Prep Setter Bob, and we'll hopefully come up with a list, because I don't know, man. I've never done any of this before. I know we need like the tie downs, the hurricane tie downs. Another way you can help, please subscribe to the Self-Reliant Roadshow. They made it over 1,000 subscribers, so thank you everyone who gave them a chance and went over to subscribe to their channel. They will also have some traveling expenses, you know, diesel costs, and just that's all they're looking for, is help with their traveling expenses. They're not charging me a penny for any of this. This is all their generosity. So that would be another way you can help. And if you go to their channel, I'll put a link below. They will have a link to their PayPal, Patreon, if you want to keep supporting them after they leave Bobblehead Homestead. They do have a Patreon, and so that would be another way you can help. And all right, I'm out here talking to myself as people are over walking by, so I'll stop. So yeah, I was talking, that's how you can help. If we think of anything else, or if anything else comes along, I will put in my future videos. Once again, if you want to come down on May 11th, shoot me an email. If the 11th doesn't work for you, you know, and sometime between the 8th and the 15th would, send me an email, and we'll see if we can work that out. There will be, you know, there'll be some days where we just won't even be here. We'll probably be in Russellville picking up supplies, or, you know, whatever. So we'll just have to play that by ear on the dates other than the 11th. All right, that's about it. Thanks everybody. I'm sorry, I know this, these videos are probably not going to be my usual fare for the next month, but, you know, who knows, after that I might be living in my cabin. I might have might actually have time left this year to do some gardening, and you just never know. So I'll be back to normal if there is such a thing. Okay, thanks for watching, and take her easy everybody. Thank you.